I'll be honest, coming up with a video title is hard, but you know what's not hard? The newest games in the Pokemon series Sword and Shield. I know it should be a game that's playable by everyone, but it seems like they a bit went overboard with the child-safe padding. At least that's how I see things, so here's an idea. I'm going to go through the game with a bunch of arbitrary restrictions and point out everything it does to help you in an attempt to properly answer the question, how easy is Pokemon Sword and Shield? Also, of course, spoilers for like the whole game. Continue at your own risk. So what are those arbitrary restrictions? Well, I thought we'd identify everything that the game throws at you in an attempt to help you, and avoid them. So that means no resting at Pokemon centers, no buying or selling items with money, watts, or BP, no trading, no online functionality, no optional raids, no Pokejobs, and I only ever caught like 8 Pokemon the entire time. That said, I am allowing the clothing store because despite your greatest superstitions, looking cool doesn't actually make you any better. There's also unavoidable auto-healing, which pops up throughout the story a lot. We will be keeping track of those. And since this isn't a Nuzlocke, I'd like to mention that blacking out is not against the rules. That said, I did my best to play like the average gamer I am, so we can see just how hard it is. I didn't die on purpose, is what I'm trying to say. And lastly, freebies are fine. Being an item sitting on the ground or freely offered to the player upon speaking with them, those are very much welcomed. Just know that I never actually spent that much time actually finding these, and I let myself discover them naturally as this was my very first playthrough of the game. I'll reiterate, these rules are very arbitrary, and I don't actually know if this mini-series will actually prove anything, but it should be fun, maybe? Okay, enough preamble, on to the game. This one starts us out in the town of Postwick, which is just our house and our rival's house. That said, our rival this time around is Hop, and he is the worst. I think you'll come to agree with me, but let's not get into that right now. After meeting up with Hop, we immediately head down past some fields to the town of Wedgehurst, where we'll meet Hop's older brother Leon. He is this game's champion, and he is a joke. I hate to be a negative Nancy here, but it be like it do. As soon as we return to Hop's house, Leon allows us to choose from 3 Pokemon. There's Grookey, the grass starter, Sobble, the water starter, and Scorbunny, the fire starter. Probably quite literally for that last one. If we want to accurately gauge the difficulty of this game, I should play like an average gamer. With that in mind, I chose my starter based off looks alone. Scorbunny is cute, so that's what we're going with, though his evolutions might look a bit like Digimon, but that's okay, I actually sort of like Digimon, so since it's my video and I can do what I want, I'm going to be naming all of my Pokemon after Digimon. Cool. That said, our new Pokemon is Terriermon, who we immediately use to beat up Hop's Grookey and Wooloo. It's a painfully easy fight, as is to be expected from the tutorial, which is followed up by a sort of unnecessary auto-heal. From there we go to tell our dear old mum that we're heading off on an adventure, only to find that a rowdy Wooloo has gone running off into a nearby forest which is known as the Slumbering Weald. Along this path we find our first patch of grass, where we can face off against some level 2 Pokemon. Thanks to their level we don't get much experience and we don't have any Pokeballs to catch them, so we move on to find Hop waiting for us. He'll heal up our whole team of 1 Pokemon every time you speak to him, which is very unnecessary, but it's not required so I won't actually count it. There's a couple more patches of grass and unnecessary interruptions until you reach a patch of fog that's so thick the protagonist can't hear a giant wolf walking up to them from like 5 feet away. We're then flung into a fight against the game's box art legendary, where none of our moves do anything and he just stands there menacingly until he knocks us out. Afterwards, upon waking up, we're met by Leon, who is apparently pants with directions. If you're not hip to British lingo like me, that means he's bad with directions. I am only drawing attention to this because it's one of the only character traits he's given the entire game, and it comes up way too often. Anyways, from there we can finally visit our mum, who gives us 30,000 Pokebucks, suggesting we buy ourselves a little something at the Pokemon Center. Thanks, but no thanks. She also gives us 5 Pokeballs, which isn't mentioned, and we randomly have 3 potions and a fishing rod. After being spoken at by Hop, we start down Route 1 towards Wedgehurst only for some Wooloo to pop into view. Turns out they're arbitrarily blocking the path, so we're forced to actually play the game. Here, we can see that they've carried over the mechanic from Pokemon Let's Go, where wild Pokemon can be seen just milling about. There's also random Pokemon that'll jump out at you, which are identified with some rustling and an exclamation mark. I really like this change, but it can make the game a bit easier by letting you pick and choose your battles. I did a bit of light battling, and even caught a female Rookidee, which I decided to name Galamon, because that'll make sense when it fully evolves. It's also worth noting that XP share is on by default, and there's no way to turn it off. The only way, as the developers suggest, to actually avoid this is to box all but 1 Pokemon, and that takes effort, so no thanks. While spitting out super hot fire at some low-level Pokemon, I was actually really interested by Blipbug's design. I Don't like that name though, so I nicknamed him Kabuteramon. If you grew up with Digimon, you know my naming game is on point, but that's irrelevant. With that, we continue on to the Professor Lab on the east side of Wedgehurst. Here we're spoken at by Leon, and Charizard randomly walks into frame just to say that he exists. How fitting. Inside, it turns out the professor isn't here, but her assistant and granddaughter Sonia is there. She's actually a childhood friend of Leon and a member of the regular cast. She reiterates that Leon is bad with directions twice in 2 sentences before giving us the Pokedex. Afterwards, just outside, we're accosted by some random man who hands us a free potion. Okay, sure. Hop's waiting for us by the Pokemon Center, and he bullies us into entering it. Luckily, after the exposition is over, we can actually leave and run into Hop again about 30 feet away. He encourages us to head down Route 2 to the professor's home, which feels a bit unnecessary considering that's the only other direction we can actually go. Just down the path, before we even touch a patch of grass, Hop stops us again. That's the 3rd time since the Pokemon Center, and Leon comes running up. Thankfully, we can actually skip the catching tutorial, so he gives us 20 Pokeballs for free, and we're finally able to explore Route 2. It's here that I ran into Chootle, which is just adorable. Look at that little horn. Her nickname is Zudomon because I think it sounds cool. For the rest of Route 2, there's some patches of grass and items laying about, as well as 2 unavoidable trainer battles against children wearing sweaters in the middle of the day. Not sure if it's the child part or the potential heat stroke, but they're pretty easy opponents. That done, we're finally at the professor's house, where Hop stops us to tell us that the professor is there, standing like 20 feet away. Okay. I'll stop pointing out all of Hop's interruptions as there are way too many of them. I just want to paint the picture, and hopefully you get why so many people think he's insufferable, or at least why I do. Once inside, Professor Magnolia introduces the concept of Dynamaxing, this region's gimmick. Also, Leon is pressured by Hop to endorse the 2 of us so that we can go take part in the gym challenge, which is basically the usual travel battle gym setup from previous games, but with more infrastructure. At some point in that conversation, we're sneakily healed up, which makes 2 so far. Outside, we recreate that previous fight against Hop where we stomped him, but now he has a poor Rookidee with him as well. Despite witnessing me wipe the floor with his younger brother, Leon decides to give both of us letters of endorsement before a couple of wishing stars fall out of the sky, because plot convenience. I know what they're going for with wishes coming true and all, but it's pretty lazy. Everybody readily accepts this miracle, and we head inside to eat curry where we get another auto heal. Professor Magnolia, an expert on Dynamaxing, makes us some Dynamax bands by fitting the wishing stars we just found into them. Considering so many people we run into can Dynamax their Pokemon, does that mean that this region has an issue with meteorites constantly falling from the sky? Let's not think about that too hard. Heading back through Route 2, our next stop is the train station, but first a quick visit to the clothing store. I won't be using my easily earned Pokebox anywhere else, so I might as well look cool-ish. Inside the train station, our mums give us each a set of camping gear as a parting gift. This is another optional feature that lets you hang out with your Pokemon out in the field, as well as cook berries and a curry to restore them, so thanks but no thanks. A quick train ride later, we find ourselves at the start of this game's wild area. Before heading in, Sonia catches up and gives us a Pokébox link, which allows us to access the Pokébox from basically everywhere except inside of a gym. I wasn't sure on whether or not I actually wanted to use this, so I kept its usage to an absolute minimum. As for the wild area itself, this is a new feature which sort of blends the concept of the Safari Zone with the spirit of Breath of the Wild, sorta. The result is a large open space where Pokemon of all shapes, types, and levels can be found. The wild area is divided up into a number of different sub-areas which are each subject to changing weather. Also, the wild area is dotted with Pokedens which shoot out red light. That's where you can collect Watts, which are currency used to buy items from certain vendors, as well as initiate raid battles against giant, powerful Pokemon. While the raids themselves can be difficult, depending on the type of raid, the Pokemon you capture can have a hidden ability active, or even be able to Gigantamax, which means having a stronger G-Max move. Like I said, we're not going to be doing any of that. We could also camp here, which is also not happening. For what it's worth, I do actually like the idea of the wild area, though it feels pretty underdeveloped thanks to the serious lack of polish. Regardless, for now, the wild area is mostly a minefield of overleveled Pokemon. We don't have any hope of defeating or catching a lot of those because there's a limit to what we can catch based on the number of gym badges we have, so I just ran on to the next city. That being Motostoke, where the hand-holding is not yet done. Sony forces us to enter the Pokemon Center, where she introduces the concept of lead cards, which are just Pokemon Trainer collectible cards, which is actually a sort of neat idea. I should also mention at this point that the Rotami PC is where you can actually take part in Pokejobs. That's where you pick a job, mission, or whatever, and send out a number of Pokemon from anywhere from 1 to 24 hours. There's different jobs that are rated from 1 to 10 stars, and for each you can send anywhere between 3 and 30 Pokemon, depending on the job's specific rating. Assuming you put in the effort to send Pokemon with the right types for whatever job is at hand, they'll get rewarded with experience as well as items ranging from fresh water and heal balls all the way up to max revive and rare candies and big nuggets on the very, very upper end. The rating of jobs available scales with the number of badges you have, so while I don't think it's an easy set and forget it abusable kind of system, it's definitely helpful, and helpfuling is bad. No thanks. After leaving the Pokemon Center, we get a very underwhelming dolly shot of the city's main thoroughfare before we can head towards the lift. Just before we catch it, however, Leon comes running up after his Charizard, again reiterating how awful he is with directions. Twice. Why? I know this is a Pokemon game, but does the writing have to be this bad? Anyways, he gives us a piece of charcoal, which makes our starter that much stronger, so thank you. After taking the lift up, we're greeted by our favorite character ever, the crowning jewel of the Galar region, our lord and savior, if I am to be so bold, is the one, the only Ball Guy. Whenever you talk to Ball Guy, which everyone always should because he is a national treasure, he gifts the player a Pokeball with some fun dialogue to go along with it. After that, standing in front of the Motostoke Stadium is Stalker Squad member Hop. Not to be a put-down patty, but that's 4 forced NPC interactions from the front of the city all the way to the gym, not that anyone's counting at all. In here we are introduced to another rival, Bede. He is rude and insufferable, and that's most of his character arc for this game. While signing up for the gym challenge, you're able to pick a number for your jersey. I went with the number 004 because I've always looked forward to the Elite Four in these games, and if I don't include it in this game, who will? After that, we're forced to go rest at the Badoo drop-in, however, some rambunctious rascally rebels refuse to shut up and let us check in without a fight. This is Team Yell, and despite coming across as obnoxious idiots, I think you'll come to agree that there are obnoxious idiots. My Pokemon are still a bit roughed up from the trek through the wall area, but Terriermon make short work of their Zigzagoon, learning the move Double Kick. This move is fantastic, by the way, and it stays relevant for most of the game, which makes it all the worse that our bunny with the soccer motif doesn't have a kick animation for this move. Regardless, the Team Yell grunts are easily dispatched and are subject to a verbal beatdown by our other rival, Marnie. As she explains, Team Yell is just a group of her fans and they follow her around with the goal of cheering her on. As soon as we take a little nap to progress the story, we get auto-healed and it's right back to the stadium with us for the ceremony hosted by totally not bad guy Chairman Rose, joined by his secretary Oleana.
The sugar must have slowed down time!
Or we're super fast!
Iceberg wants to see how fast.
Neat. Back outside, before we've even seen our first gym fight, we're given the ability to use a flying taxi to quick travel between any previously visited locations. Definitely a change up from what I'm used to from the older games, but it is convenient, so why not? Our destination is to the west, Route 3. However, Hop is once more blocking our path. This fight is pretty easy, but I'd like to point something out. By this point, we've seen the same Pokemon more than a few times. In this game, you can actually see the effectiveness of every move on your team, assuming you've seen the opponent's Pokemon at least once. That even includes seeing and running away from a Pokemon in the wild. That means that repeat fights, like against our rivals or the Team Yell grunts, is made that much easier by the game clearly telling us what we should actually use, which also means we don't have to bother learning any of those pesky type matchups. From that fight, our Kabuterimon digivolves into his second stage, Robo-Shellmon. I'm not updating their names, I'm too lazy. Finally, we've reached Route 3. Let me be real, I know this has taken a bit, but there's just so much setup and exposition and explaining done before the first gym. Trust me, things will move much faster because while the training wheels on this Rotom bike aren't quite off, they're not as noticeable from here on. Now, Route 3 is dotted with grassy trainers as to be expected. About halfway through, we get some quick exposition from Stalker Squad Sonia, a free escape rope, and an unnecessary auto heal. With that, the route and its trainers are easily overcome, and without any real effort, Terriermon digivolves into its emo phase. As soon as we enter the entrance to the mine, I want to mention that we pass a lady standing off to the side. She's an optional NPC who will optionally heal your Pokemon because it's unreasonable to expect players to quick travel all the way back to the other side of Route 3. Anyways, I took my time going through the Galar mine, fighting a number of Pokemon I came across as well as most of the trainers. Still, I was more than healthy enough to struggle bug Bede's psychic Pokemon straight into the Shadow Realm. Just outside is yet another optional healer who is actually within line of sight of an actual Pokemon Center. We have the option of running straight there, but I meandered my way through the fields on the east side of the route, battling most of the trainers with relative ease. Like I mentioned before, you can pick and choose your fights, which I did to some extent, but it wasn't a huge priority for me. While doing all this, from the same fight, my Galmon actually digivolved to its second evolution, and Terriermon learned Flame Charge. After my Pokemon were starting to get a bit low in health, I moved towards Turffield, where I was met with the gym leader Milo. After a short exchange, we walk a few feet forward and get told by Hop to head up the hill. Up there is Sonia, who once more gives us some exposition as well as 2 revives. I hate to say it, but that's her entire job for this game. She basically shoehorns in some exposition, almost always followed up by some items and the occasional auto heal. Just like in the Motostoke gym, Ball Guy is waiting for us in the Turffield gym, gifting us a friend ball. How nice. Now, before taking on the gym mission, I made sure to restore my Pokemon with what little resources I had, which, as it happens, is completely pointless. You see, every time you enter the gym from the lobby, the game will auto-heal your Pokemon, even though it's always right next to a Pokemon Center. Anyways, the mission for this one requires us to do some Wooloo herding, mixed in with some trainer fights against grass types, which are optional, but I did them anyways. As you might expect, at this point my Terriermon was more than capable of steamrolling all of them. Flame Charge helped that much more, since every use of it increased our Speedy Boy's already speedy stat. I do want to also mention that the music for the gym leader battles and the change up that happens when they Dynamax their Pokemon is actually really cool. It took a while, but I think the music for this game actually grew on me. Though I will say, I didn't even bother Dynamaxing my own Pokemon for this one. That done, we acquired our first gym shard badge, as well as the TM for Magical Leaf and a uniform I will not wear. Also, they auto-heal our Pokemon as soon as we return to the lobby, so thank you for that. From there, we head east through Route 5, where we'll pass a daycare. More like, I don't care. Anyways, the only real encounter worth noting takes place as we try to cross the bridge. There's a doctor being harassed by a couple of Team Yell grunts. Apparently they want to borrow his Rotom bike so they can chase after gym challengers and make them all tired. The grunts are easily dispatched, and the doctor is so impressed with our ability to beat people up that he gives us his own bike there and then. The bike lets us go fast. That's cool. On the bridge we find Hop waiting for us. He is easily beaten. Also, Thwacky looks dumb, don't at me. At the other side of the bridge is the rest of Route 5, which doesn't have much worth mentioning. I will say, I did consider getting a Stuffle, one of my favorite pokes, but I think I just sort of forgot to catch it or something. Honestly. But before long, we're finally at the port city of Holbury, where we find Oleana fending off against some of the chairman's fans. Bede's there too, I guess. Down by the lighthouse is the gym leader Nessa, staring longingly off at the ocean. After a short exchange, she heads back to the gym, as do we. Ball Guy is here, and Ball Guy is the best. Heading into the gym mission, we're tasked with a bit of a puzzle, turning off and on water pipes until the path is clear to the gym leader. The trainers along the way weren't too difficult for Galamon, but Nessa was a bit of a different story. I'll admit, I was getting a bit cocky at this point. It's so easy, I thought. Not technically wrong, but I absolutely goofed it. His defense is pretty good, and his Razor Shell move hits pretty hard. The absolute goofage was thinking that he was a water type. He's Water Rock, which means my Dynamaxed Galamon's Max Airstream dealt very little damage. So that's a whoops, which is also our first team wipe. If you're curious, despite not resting at any of the Pokemon centers, they respawned us back at the Motostoke Center. So my first instinct was return to the Walt area and pick up some kind of electric type Pokemon. I meandered around, and the only one that actually caught my eye was the baby Pokemon Toxel. Unfortunately, the only Toxel I could find was just one level higher that I can catch with my current badges. I did get about 15 minutes worth of grinding in, which was just enough to get my Zudomon to its second and final evolution, Dreadnought. How did I should have known the type, but I didn't. I'm sorry. There were also a few items I came across, so I got those. And by the way, did you know that there's an apple Pokemon named Applin? Yeah, I threw rocks at it. That done, I revisited the whole Berry Gym once more, and I played my card differently because the game told me which moves I should actually use. Type matchups aside, I actually took a risk by Dynamaxing my Terriermon. Dreadnaught's Max Geyser is very scary, but his water-type moves are actually a bit weak, so Terriermon was more than capable of kicking him down to pretty low health. I used up all my Pokemon until it was my Zudomon against Nessa's Dreadnought. His Razor Shell does hurt, but our Rock Tomb was more than enough to take him out, earning our second gym badge. This also earned us TM36 in Whirlpool, which I later taught to Zudomon. After leaving the gym, we're forced to meet Chairman Rose at the local seafood restaurant. I went there because I have to. Okay, I'm here, let's eat. Oh no, don't start talking about wishing stars again. Sonia never stops talking about Darkest Day this, Darkest Day that, Dyna Wish maxing stone, and so on. I'm just gonna wait. Someone wake me up when food gets here. Oh, hey! I'd like to break the fourth wall for a second to thank you for watching this video. Our journey is not yet done, so we'll be finishing things off with a part 2 coming soon to a subscription box near you. Big thanks to my channel members for their support, and the extra biggest of thanks to Christy Cuntris and Pseudonymous for being super fans. That said, I'll see you in part 2.